Day after day, the inmates of a women's prison were getting pregnant one after another. When the warden decided to open an investigation to find out the reason, horror seized everyone. Dr. Elizabeth stared at the ultrasound monitor, her eyes wide. In over 10 years of her medical career, she had seen many strange things, but this one was completely unexpected. The image on the screen was clear and unequivocal, and her mind desperately tried to find a logical explanation for what she was seeing. When Elizabeth could finally formulate her thoughts, she called the guard who was waiting at the door. "Madison, could you call the warden?" "Tell her it's urgent," the doctor asked, trying to maintain a professional tone despite the anxiety perceptible in her voice. Madison frowned but asked no questions. She just nodded and left quickly to call the warden. While they waited, Elizabeth turned to the patient. A young woman named Hillary sat restlessly on the gurney, drumming her fingers nervously. In her eyes was the same confusion as Elizabeth's. "Doctor, I don't understand much, but that thing on the screen, is it really what I think it is?" But Hillary, unable to finish her sentence, Elizabeth took a deep breath and confirmed, "Yes, Hillary, you are pregnant. But the question is how? How did you get pregnant here in this place? Please explain. I need to understand how this happened." Hillary looked down, trying to avoid the question. Her discomfort only grew when the door opened, and Samantha, the head of the department, entered the room with a firm step and a serious expression. Samantha was troubled to see the look of unease on the doctor's face. "What is it, Elizabeth? What's going on?" Samantha asked, her gaze shifting between Elizabeth and Hillary, trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. Elizabeth pointed to the ultrasound monitor, which was still on. "Look here," the doctor said, already anticipating the reaction. Samantha approached and her eyes widened when she saw the image. "No, that's not possible. She's pregnant. But how?" "This is already the third one this week," Samantha asked in disbelief. The doctor and the warden exchanged a look that reflected the same doubts and confusion. "This is serious, Samantha. We can't just stand by." "Something is happening," Elizabeth declared. Samantha ran a hand over her tired face, clearly trying to process the information. In the women's prison where she worked, the rules were extremely strict. Intimate encounters were forbidden, and contact with the outside world was controlled. "It's impossible. There's no way a woman could get pregnant here," Samantha said, shaking her head. "But you're right. Something very serious is happening right under our noses." Hillary, the young prisoner, listened silently to the conversation. The doctor looked at her with a serious expression, and she nervously began to say, "Hillary, I'm only going to ask you this once," Elizabeth said, trying to keep her voice calm and gentle. "How did you get pregnant? Who is the child's father?" Hillary was sweating and clenching her fists, searching for an answer. "I don't know how it happened," she said in a trembling voice. "I didn't do anything, I swear. I don't know. Please don't ask me again." Elizabeth and Samantha exchanged meaningful glances. Something was wrong. The young woman clearly knew something but refused to talk. The chief warden, who was growing impatient, crossed her arms over her chest and approached Hillary, as if her presence alone could elicit an answer. "Listen, Hillary," the chief warden began in a firm voice, "you are the third woman to get pregnant here, and that's just this week. This means something is happening in this correctional facility, and we need to know what and how. So tell us, how did you get pregnant?" Hillary staggered back, surprised by the abrupt confrontation. "I told you I don't know and I don't want to talk about it anymore," she said, getting up abruptly from the gurney, visibly shaken by the pressure. Before they could stop her, Hillary went out the door accompanied by a guard, leaving the doctor and the warden once again without an answer. Over the following days, tensions rose in the prison. Samantha decided to call a meeting of the prison staff to discuss the suspicions and try to find new evidence. Gathered in a small conference room, the security staff and other employees listened attentively to Samantha's account of the situation. Madison, one of the guards responsible for the prisoners, scratched her head before saying, "I spend all day with these women and I've never noticed anything suspicious. They spend the day in the cafeteria or in the yard doing their chores. I don't understand how they could get pregnant." Elizabeth, who was there, added, "Conjugal visits are not allowed here. Contact is always monitored. Everything is watched by cameras." This makes the situation even stranger. A heavy silence hung in the room until another guard, Maria, said, "What if it's not someone from the outside? What if it's one of us who works here?" Samantha looked at Elizabeth, The idea was disturbing, but it made sense. Do you think an employee could be involved? I'm not accusing anyone, but we can't rule out such a possibility. Maybe someone took advantage of a break in their work to meet the women away from the cameras, Maria suggested cautiously. Samantha took this suggestion to heart, but all the security staff, as well as the other cleaning and cafeteria employees, were women. The only man here was Mr. Alex. An even deeper silence fell over the room. No one dared to accuse the old man of such a thing. He was well known for his kindness and gentlemanly charisma. Mr. Alex was a guard who stood at the entrance gate of the correctional facility, and in the 20 years he had worked there, he had almost no contact with the prisoners. At least, that's what everyone thought. Doubt began to creep into Samantha's mind, and she decided to watch all the surveillance camera footage from the past few months. Later in the observation room, Elizabeth and Samantha reviewed all possible recordings. They examined every hallway, every corner, looking for something that might have gone unnoticed. The work was exhausting but necessary. During one of the recordings, Elizabeth noticed something unusual. The footage showed the last prisoner who had gotten pregnant being let out through one of the hallway doors, and right behind her was Mr. Alex. Both of them entered another corridor where the restrooms were and where the camera couldn't film. And after a few minutes, only Mr. Alex came back. It all seemed very suspicious. Why did he go to the restroom with the prisoner? There are restrooms in the guard post, Samantha declared. Do you think he could be responsible for all this? Elizabeth asked, not hiding her enthusiasm. Neither of them wanted to believe that Mr. Alex could be the person responsible for all these pregnancies. But he was the only male employee there, and suspicion fell on him. Before jumping to hasty conclusions and blaming someone for something so serious, the warden decided it was best to simply talk to Mr. Alex. But to her surprise, he was on vacation. The doubts faded. The mystery remained. The news of Mr. Alex's vacation dispelled all suspicion, as the old man had been away for nearly a month when the first pregnancy was discovered. During a phone conversation, he also explained that he had started using the prisoner's restroom while the one at the guard post was under renovation. Samantha was relieved to learn that poor Mr. Alex was not responsible for anything. But the secret remained, and as if fate were conspiring against her, a new bombshell exploded in their lives. Just a week after the last pregnancy discovery, Elizabeth entered the warden's office with hesitant steps. Her face was pale as if she had just received terrible news. "Samantha, you won't believe it, but we have another case, and this time it's Suzanne," Elizabeth declared. In the look Samantha gave Elizabeth, there was a mixture of surprise and despair. Suzanne was a prominent figure in the prison, known for her intimidating behavior and the influence she held over the other prisoners. She was an imposing woman with a strong stature and a firm expression on her face. Her stern gaze was enough to make anyone look away. "We need to talk to her immediately," Samantha said, getting up hastily. Elizabeth nodded, and they went together to the yard where Suzanne usually was at this time of day. When they arrived, the prisoner was already waiting for them with a defiant expression on her face. With her arms crossed over her chest and a raised eyebrow, she seemed ready for any confrontation. The other prisoners around were whispering and exchanging curious glances. "Suzanne, can we talk alone for a bit?" Samantha asked, trying to keep her calm. Suzanne let out a sarcastic laugh and shook her head with disdain. "Suzanne, we want to understand what's happening here. 3 prisoners have gotten pregnant, and now you too. We know something is going on here, and we need to know what," Elizabeth declared. Suzanne watched them carefully, challenging them both. "You shouldn't meddle in other people's problems. I'm not telling you anything, so stop your little investigation." Casting one last threatening look at Samantha, Suzanne turned and walked away. The impasse and the new discovery. The next day, a meeting was scheduled with the prison administration. Samantha and Elizabeth were visibly tense as they entered the room where serious faces awaited them. Samantha began the meeting by recounting the events of the past few weeks, and Elizabeth shared the documents and medical details concerning the prisoners. When they mentioned the absence of conjugal visits, the faces of those present became even more confused. "With all due respect," Samantha said, taking a deep breath, "this situation already seems ridiculous to us. 4 pregnant women in a place where it shouldn't be possible, and we have no idea how it's happening." After a moment of awkward silence, The prison director finally broke the tense atmosphere. "We can't ignore this. We must act. We are going to increase surveillance and install cameras in every possible corner." The decision was unanimous. There would be no more unmonitored areas. Not a single corridor, entrance, or yard would be without a camera. It was the last attempt to solve the mystery. Over the next week, Elizabeth and Samantha spent countless hours poring over the recordings. Every movement of the prisoners, guards, and staff was analyzed in detail. But no matter how carefully they watched, nothing unusual happened. Everything was under apparent control, and the secret persisted. Exhausted, Elizabeth rubbed her eyes, watching the video from the last shift one more time. "Samantha, I don't know what to think anymore. We've analyzed every detail and found nothing," Elizabeth said. Samantha shook her head in disappointment and replied, "Me too. I'm starting to doubt we'll find anything. We've watched everything from dawn till dusk and nothing." The days were monotonous. Samantha and Elizabeth followed the same routine. They worked and spent their free time immersed in their notes, searching for answers. One afternoon, Elizabeth was flipping through medical files in her office when Madison entered, accompanied by a young prisoner. "Doctor, this is Louise. She's not feeling well, so I decided to bring her here," the guard explained, guiding the prisoner to the gurney. "Tell me what you're feeling, Louise," the doctor asked. The young woman looked down and answered hesitantly, "I've been sick for a few days. My stomach hurts and I feel pain all over my body. I can't eat normally and I can't sleep." Elizabeth watched her carefully. Something in Louise's posture suggested she was hiding something. "I'm going to do an ultrasound to get a closer look at what's going on," Elizabeth declared, already suspecting what she would discover. In a few minutes, her suspicions were confirmed. "Louise, you are pregnant," Elizabeth said, already thinking about how she would tell Samantha that a fifth woman was pregnant. Upon hearing the news, the young woman opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. Instead, she began to tremble and then burst into uncontrollable tears. Elizabeth sighed deeply before turning to the guard. "Madison, please go see Samantha and tell her we have another pregnant woman," she asked, trying to contain the tension in her voice. Madison didn't waste any time. Nodding quickly, she left the room. And Elizabeth remained there, watching Louise, who was still crying, tears streaming down her face. "Louise, it's going to be okay. You can trust me. Tell me what's going on." "You are safe here," Elizabeth said calmly and in an encouraging tone. With trembling hands, Louise wiped her face and confessed in a guilty whisper, "I made a mistake. I did something very wrong." Before she could continue, the door opened and Samantha entered, followed by Madison. Samantha entered the room, looking at Louise with a mixture of curiosity and seriousness. With her arms crossed over her chest, she gave Elizabeth a questioning look, who responded with a slight nod, indicating that the situation was delicate. "Louise, we are here to help. Can you tell us what's going on?" Samantha said, softening her tone to calm the young woman. Louise sighed deeply, as if gathering her courage to open her heart. "The truth comes out, a clandestine love behind bars." Louise hesitated, her gaze shifting from Elizabeth to Samantha, as if she feared her words would be refuted. "You are looking behind us. Everyone here knows it." "But the problem is that you're looking in the wrong place," she admitted, her voice calm and uncertain. Samantha frowned and leaned forward slightly to hear better. "What do you mean? What does in the wrong place mean?" she asked, not hiding her growing curiosity. Louise looked away, visibly nervous, and after a long silence confessed that it wasn't the people from here who were doing this. This revelation left Elizabeth and Samantha stunned. They exchanged incredulous glances before Samantha moved even closer to the young woman. "Are you saying that men are coming here from outside the prison? How is that possible?" Samantha asked, trying to stay calm in the face of what she had just heard. Louise lowered her head, her words almost a whisper. "You will understand if you look in the yard, there between the bushes and the stone benches where Suzanne and the others always have a good time." Elizabeth and Samantha were in shock. The information seemed absurd, but it partly explained the mystery that had been tormenting them for several weeks. "Louise, are you sure? People are hiding in the yard?" Samantha asked, her expression grave. Louise nodded, barely lifting her eyes. "They are not hiding. You will see if you look carefully." Despite the young woman's hesitant tone, something in Louise's frightened expression made everything more real in the eyes of Elizabeth and Samantha. The fear in Louise's eyes made it all more credible. So why are so many women getting pregnant? Are these meetings organized there? Samantha asked, still trying to understand what she had heard. Louise bit her lip, visibly uncomfortable. Please don't go there when everyone is in the yard. If Suzanne finds out what I told you, I don't know what she will do, she whispered, almost pleading. After her confession, Louise left the room. Elizabeth and Samantha exchanged glances, realizing this was the most concrete lead they had so far. We need to check the cameras. We are going to look at the exact spot she mentioned. If there's something there, we need to see it now, Samantha declared in a determined tone. Elizabeth nodded, her heart pounding. It seemed they were finally about to solve the mystery that had tormented them for so long. The discovery of the tunnel and the end of the mystery. Within minutes, they were both standing in front of the monitor screen, carefully observing what was happening. They focused on the corner of the yard mentioned by Louise, between the bushes and the stone benches. For the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. The prisoners were chatting, sitting on benches and walking in the yard. But then Elizabeth noticed something unusual. There were only 3 women instead of 4. Samantha replayed the video, squinting to focus better on the images. You're right, one of them disappeared into the bushes. We need to see where she went, Samantha said as they both continued to watch. For 30 minutes, they observed the 3 remaining prisoners, who seemed to be on guard as if they were watching something. Then the disappeared prisoner reappeared from among the bushes, as if nothing had happened. Elizabeth held her breath, feeling the tension rise. They waited until the yard was empty at the end of the day. Once all the prisoners were back in their cells, Samantha and Elizabeth left the observation room and headed to the indicated spot. Arriving at the bush, Samantha carefully parted the leaves and discovered something unexpected. A small hole in the ground, almost invisible among the thickets. Elizabeth, look, we found it, Samantha exclaimed in surprise. Elizabeth bent down and her eyes widened when she realized it was a narrow, well-camouflaged tunnel. All this time right under their noses. They quickly called the guards to go down into the tunnel and find out where it led. The security officers navigated a narrow path and after a few minutes returned with the long-awaited answer. The tunnel connected the women's prison yard to the men's prison yard. Samantha, Elizabeth, and the guards burst out laughing as soon as they understood what was happening. So that's it, Samantha commented, wiping away tears of laughter. The secret of the pregnant women was actually a secret love story between prisoners from the 2 departments. According to the guards, the tunnel was apparently the result of an old, failed escape attempt. Instead of getting the prisoners out of prison, it had been dug towards the opposite wing, creating a secret connection between the 2 correctional facilities. There, in a narrow hidden tunnel, prisoners met regularly, taking advantage of the opportunities and the luck they had in discovering this passage. The constant encounters and the lack of contraception had the inevitable result of several female prisoners getting pregnant. Samantha and Elizabeth informed the management of both prisons about what had happened. After a long discussion, a simple and effective solution was adopted. Close both entrances to the tunnel to prevent further secret meetings and, consequently, new unexpected pregnancies. As an alternative, the administration decided to organize visits on certain days of the month, ensuring that these meetings took place in a safe and controlled environment, while maintaining the necessary confidentiality to avoid future problems. In the following months, Samantha and Elizabeth carefully observed the consequences of this secret's revelation. 5 babies born in prison were entrusted to the families of the prisoners, who would care for the children while the mothers served their sentences. The mystery of the pregnant women became a funny and lesson-filled story that they told with great pleasure at meetings and professional gatherings to remind everyone that the truth often turns out to be simpler than one imagines.